Imagine standing beneath a night sky untouched by modern lights, staring at the moon as our ancestors once did. To them it was a glowing mystery, a divine clock, a restless spirit. But what if, beyond mythology, it is also a geological enigma, an intruder whose presence in Earth's orbit is the result of a violent capture rather than a shared birth? If that were true, then the rocks, the craters, the magnetism, and the isotopes must carry scars of that cosmic theft. And so, scientists have searched those scars for centuries, hoping the moon's body might reveal the truth. The moon's surface is like an open wound that never healed. Where Earth has rivers that carve valleys and tectonic plates that recycle stone, the moon is still silent, a vault of ancient scars. Every crater is an unblinking eye staring back at us across billions of years. If it was captured, then its foreignness should echo in its chemistry, in its isotopes, in the very density of its body. And here lies the first great contradiction. The moon's rocks, studied from the Apollo missions and meteorite samples, are eerily similar to Earth's own. Their isotopic ratios, oxygen in particular, match so perfectly that it seems impossible for the moon to have come from anywhere else. It is as if the moon speaks Earth's chemical language. Yet, paradoxically, other features resist this neat explanation. And yet, there are peculiarities that keep the capture hypothesis alive. For instance, the moon is strangely light. Its density is only about 3.3 grams per cubic centimeter, far less than Earth's 5.5. This means it lacks a large iron core, the kind Earth has hidden beneath its mantle. If the moon was Earth's twin, why is it missing the heart of metal? Some scientists suggest it once had such a core, but lost it through some catastrophic event. Perhaps a stripping away during gravitational capture, or a violent tidal disruption that tore its insides apart. Others argue this missing iron is proof the moon was never Earth's child, but a wanderer with a different origin, reshaped by capture's violence into the companion we know today. The mechanics of capture themselves read like a cosmic puzzle. A body as large as the moon could not simply be grabbed by Earth's gravity. Celestial mechanics demand the loss of energy for capture to occur. Otherwise, the moon would have slingshotted past Earth or collided catastrophically. So, how could capture be possible? Some propose that early Earth was shrouded in a vast, extended atmosphere of vaporized rock after the planet's own violent youth. A wandering body passing through this veil could slow, drag against the atmosphere, and be seized. Others suggest that a third body, perhaps a smaller proto-moon or a passing planetesimal, took part in a gravitational dance, bleeding energy from the moon's orbit and leaving it bound to Earth. Such scenarios sound improbable, but in the chaos of the young solar system, improbable things were common. And then there is the riddle of the moon's two faces. The side we see, the near side, is dark and smooth with vast maria, seas of basalt born of ancient volcanic floods. The far side, hidden from us, is a fortress of mountains and craters, its crust far thicker and more ancient. Why such asymmetry? If the moon had formed calmly from Earth's debris, we might expect more balance. But if it were captured, perhaps the violent tugging, the locking of rotation, the tidal forces that bent and reshaped it, left one side battered and another reshaped. The far side became thickened armor, while the near side was weakened and drowned in basalt. This dichotomy is not just geological, it is psychological, almost mythic. A face of shadow, a face of fire. Magnetism, too, whispers of mysteries unsolved. Apollo samples show that the moon's rocks once carried magnetic fields, suggesting a molten, churning core and a working dynamo. But the moon is small. It should have cooled quickly, its heart going cold in cosmic terms almost immediately. And yet, for perhaps 1 billion years, it sustained a magnetic presence stronger than expected. Some argue that only immense tidal heating, such as what might occur during a violent orbital capture, could keep such a dynamo alive. If true, then the moon's magnetism is not just a curiosity, but a relic of trauma, the echo of capture itself, when gravity's pull twisted its interior like a furnace bellows. Seismic studies, too, hint at strangeness. The moon rings when struck by meteors, its quakes lingering in a way Earth's do not. Its crust is oddly fractured, its layers peculiar in depth and distribution. Some interpret these as natural outcomes of its unique birth. Others whisper of trauma, of a body once whole and free, torn and reshaped by Earth's relentless gravity. Could this ringing be the echo of capture? The reverberation of a prisoner adjusting to its chains? But the greatest paradox lies in isotopes. Lunar rocks share Earth's oxygen isotope ratios to uncanny precision. No other body in the solar system matches so closely. If the moon came from afar, why does it bear Earth's chemical accent? Some suggest coincidence, others propose shared origins in the same region of the solar nebula, and still others weave a hybrid tale. The moon was once Earth's own flesh, torn away, then recaptured in the chaos of early orbits, a theft not from a stranger, but from Earth's own body. In this story, capture is not foreign abduction, but homecoming after exile. The capture hypothesis survives because the evidence is both too close and too far. Too close, because the isotopes bind Earth and Moon together as siblings. Too far, because density, magnetism, and orbital mechanics suggest something more complex. In the cracks between these truths, the theory breathes. Each anomaly, each unexplained detail, offers fuel to the idea that the Moon was once a wanderer, ensnared, reshaped, and locked forever in orbit. Imagine the early sky, billions of years ago. Earth, raw and molten, its air choked with vapor, its seas still forming. Into this chaos drifts a smaller world, scarred from its own birth, seeking stability. Earth's pull seizes it, dragging it into orbit. The process is not gentle. It is a cosmic kidnapping. The smaller world is forced into synchrony, its face locked forever toward its captor. In time, humans will look up and call it beautiful. But in its geology, we may still read the violence of its arrival. The moon may be our partner, but geology hints that it could once have been our victim, or our thief. Each rock, each isotope, each strange magnetic ghost is part of the evidence. None are final, none are decisive, but together they whisper a tale of uncertainty. Was the moon born of Earth's body, or did Earth steal it from the wandering dark? The evidence says both, and neither. It leaves us suspended in paradox, and perhaps that is fitting, for the moon itself is a paradox, a light in the darkness, both kin and captive. To dig deeper into this possibility, we turn to comparisons beyond Earth. Other moons in the solar system tell us stories of capture. Neptune's great moon, Triton, for example, moves in a retrograde orbit, circling opposite to Neptune's rotation. Its strange path is a smoking gun of capture. It must have been seized from the Kuiper Belt. If capture happened there, could it not have happened here? Mars too has its tiny moons, Phobos and Deimos, which some believe were once wandering asteroids netted by Mars's gravity in a chaotic past. These precedents remind us that capture is not impossible, only rare. If Earth could take such a prize, the consequences would be profound. The gravitational struggle would create tides of unimaginable scale, heating both worlds, fracturing crusts, stirring magma oceans. This violence could explain why the moon's far side is so thickly crusted, shielded from Earth during those fiery days, while the near side was softened by floods of molten basalt. It could explain why the moon's core is small and weak, why magnetism lingered, why fractures still echo with seismic ringing. Each anomaly, when seen through the lens of capture, becomes not confusion, but consequence. The Apollo missions gave us more than rocks. They gave us riddles. Some samples contain water trapped in volcanic glass, water that should not exist if the moon had been born bone dry from a violent impact. Some bore isotopes matching Earth's mantle so perfectly that separation seemed impossible, and yet others hinted at volatile depletion, as though the moon once endured intense heating, the kind a captured body might suffer as it was bent, squeezed, and forced into orbit. Each sample was a fragment of testimony. Each one added weight to both sides of the debate. In modern times, spacecraft like Grail and Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter have mapped the moon's gravity and topography in exquisite detail. They reveal mass concentrations, mascons, beneath lunar basins, gravitational anomalies frozen in stone. These could be the fingerprints of ancient trauma, the scars of orbital capture or colossal impacts that reshaped the moon in its earliest days. They are clues, silent but undeniable, etched across the lunar surface like scars on a captive's body. And yet, for all these findings, certainty remains elusive. The captured moon theory rests on tantalizing but incomplete evidence. It asks us to consider a scenario in which Earth once reached into space and stole a wandering world, binding it forever in orbit. But geology is not a straightforward witness. It is a chorus of voices, some singing of kinship, others of captivity. What emerges is not a verdict, but a haunting ambiguity. To imagine the moon as captured is to imagine Earth as both thief and guardian. Perhaps in wrenching this body into orbit, Earth preserved it from drifting into darkness. Perhaps this act of cosmic violence made possible the very stability that nurtured life. But if this is true, then every tide, every eclipse, every silver glow across the sea is the consequence of an ancient abduction. Our lives unfold beneath the light of a prisoner, and perhaps the moon remembers. Its silence may be the silence of trauma. Its scars may be more than geological. They may be the testimony of a world that once roamed free, only to be shackled by Earth's gravity. It circles us endlessly, a reminder, a witness, a partner, and a captive. The rocks speak, but not clearly. The evidence tells two stories at once, and as long as the truth hides in that duality, we too remain suspended, between certainty and myth, between science and imagination, between kinship and captivity. Perhaps that is why myths across cultures so often describe the moon as stolen light, borrowed power, or a captive goddess. Ancient people, without laboratories or seismometers, may have sensed in their bones what modern science still struggles to prove, that the moon does not fully belong here, that its face, locked eternally toward us, is not only a symbol of loyalty, but also of bondage. It is chained to Earth, not by choice, but by force. Geological evidence only sharpens the question, is the moon our child or our prisoner? And maybe this is the deepest meaning of the capture theory. It is not only about rocks and isotopes, not only about mascons and magnetism. It is about the human need to explain why beauty so often comes from violence, why companionship is born of theft, why the rhythms of our tides may be the result of an ancient crime. The moon could be a stolen world, a cosmic hostage, and yet, from that theft came balance, seasons, and the delicate conditions for life. The very act that imprisoned the moon may have given us the gift of stability. It is the cruelest paradox, that our survival may depend on the suffering of another world. Before telescopes, before mathematics carved the heavens into laws, humans told stories to make sense of the night sky. And among those stories, scattered like forgotten fragments, lies a haunting theme. There was a time before the moon, a time when Earth drifted through its nights without that pale companion, a time when darkness reigned, when tides lay still, when myths whispered that the moon itself had once been absent or hidden or born later from chaos. These stories come from many cultures, separated by oceans yet united by suspicion. The moon was not always there. It arrived, it was taken, it was imposed. One of the oldest references comes from indigenous traditions of the Americas. Certain Colombian tribes preserve stories that the moon was not always in the sky. They spoke of a long-ago age when Earth's nights were purely dark, when only stars burned, cold and distant. Then came the moon, an arrival sudden and dramatic, as though stolen from the gods and fastened into place. To these people, the moon was not eternal. It was a latecomer, an intruder whose presence reshaped time itself. The arrival of the moon brought not only light, but order. Cycles began, months were measured, tides stirred. The world was different afterward, as though some cosmic theft had forever altered the rhythm of Earth. The Greeks, too, left echoes of this strange belief. Ancient writers recorded that some peoples of Arcadia claimed descent from an age before the moon. They were called proselenes, literally, those before Selene. In their telling, their ancestors lived in a world lit only by the sun and the stars. The moon had not yet risen. Imagine how powerful such a claim must have been, to say that one's bloodline carried memory of a time when the sky was different, when the clock of tides and months did not exist. It was more than a myth. It was an assertion of identity, a declaration that their roots reached back into a primordial world untouched by lunar influence. In Africa, myths tell similar tales. The Zulu spoke of a time before the moon appeared, when people lived without the measure of lunar cycles, when women did not bleed in rhythm with the heavens, when seasons flowed differently. Some versions of the story describe two brothers who tricked the moon into rising, casting it into the sky where it remains trapped to this day. This cosmic theft, in myth, mirrors the capture stories of science. The moon was not born with Earth, but was taken, stolen, forced into orbit. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia also wove narratives around a world that once had no moon. In their traditions, the sky was incomplete until a figure, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman, placed the moon there as a lamp for night travelers. The darkness before its arrival was not just physical, but spiritual, a time when fear ruled and when the balance of life had yet to be set. In their telling, the moon brought order, cycles, tides, fertility, but also the terror of its waxing and waning, the reminder that light is fragile, borrowed, and temporary. Far across the oceans, the Maori of New Zealand spoke of the moon as a treasure taken from darkness. In their stories, the moon was bound into cycles of life and death only after a time of primal night. The world without the moon was a raw place, lacking order, until the rhythms of lunar months carved structure into human lives. These tales align with the intuition that the moon was not merely present. It was imposed, its presence a transformation. Mesoamerican traditions, too, hold fragments of a moonless Earth. The Aztecs spoke of battles among the gods in which the moon was torn into being, cast into the sky as the defeated sibling of the sun. Before that moment, the sky knew only one dominant fire. The Maya measured time by intricate lunar calendars. Yet in their oldest stories, they preserved a memory of an unbalanced cosmos before the moon's cycles were born. To them, the moon was not simply a light. It was an event that reordered existence. Mesopotamian myths echo this too. In some Babylonian texts, the moon god Sin was said to have emerged from primordial chaos, taking his throne in the heavens after battles among divine powers. Implicit in this is the idea of a time before his reign, when the skies were different, when order had not yet been established. In these cultures, the moon's appearance marks the transition from chaos to rhythm, from endless night to measured time. Chinese mythology also contains traces of a moonless world. Some stories describe the archer Hou Yi, who shot down excess suns to bring balance to the sky. In these accounts, the moon sometimes enters the heavens only after these battles, as a balance to the solitary sun. The absence of the moon is painted as an era of imbalance, when humans suffered under unmeasured time and overwhelming fire. Its arrival was salvation, but also a reminder that the sky was mutable, that cosmic order was fragile. These myths converge on an unsettling possibility, that ancient people, observing the heavens, intuited something that science would only much later propose, that the moon is not an eternal fixture, but a presence with a beginning. The idea of a moonless Earth survived in myth because it resonated with some deep suspicion that what hangs above us was not always there. But imagine, for a moment, what such a world would feel like. No silvery glow spilling across oceans, no tidal rhythm to guide fish and shorelines. Nights would be black, star-filled but empty of their great lamp. Human imagination itself may have evolved differently. Poets who wrote by moonlight, lovers who met under its glow, farmers who planted by its cycles, all of these cultural rhythms would be absent. Civilization, in myth, was awakened by the moon. Without it, the world would have been a darker, more fragile place, unmeasured and unbalanced. The myths also warn of chaos in a moonless age. Some traditions speak of giants or spirits that roamed unchecked in the pitch-dark nights. Without the moon's watchful gaze, balance was broken. In Greek memory, the age before Selene was primitive, chaotic, lacking measure. In Zulu memory, it was dangerous, a time of lawlessness until the moon was bound to the sky. In Aboriginal lore, it was a void of fear. These tales reflect a truth that science now confirms. The moon stabilizes Earth's axis. Without it, climates could lurch unpredictably. Seasons could collapse. Chaos would indeed rule. Myth and science here converge. Both agree that without the moon, Earth would be unstable, darker, and perilous. What if these myths are not mere poetry, but fractured memories? Could humans somehow inherit echoes of times when the moon was not yet settled into its orbit? Geological evidence tells us the moon was formed billions of years before humanity. And yet, myths are strange things. They preserve not literal memory, but archetypes, intuitions, symbolic truths. To the human psyche, the moon feels foreign, as though it arrived from elsewhere. So, we invent stories of arrival, of theft, of captivity. Myths often carry truths in metaphor where facts cannot tread. The arc of these stories also reflects human unease with dependence. To admit the moon was not always with us is to admit that it may not always remain. The same myths that recall its absence also fear its departure. If the moon was once absent, it can vanish again. And modern science echoes this fear, telling us the moon drifts away by centimeters each year. Myths of a moonless Earth are not just about the past, they are warnings, memories of absence projected into a possible future. And so, across cultures, the moonless Earth becomes a metaphor. It is not only a cosmic condition, but a human one. It is the world before order, before rhythm, before stability. It is the inner night of chaos, of fear, of loneliness. The arrival of the moon, whether through theft, gift, or divine placement, is the arrival of structure, the birth of calendars, tides, fertility, and poetry. To live before the moon was to live in shadow. To live after it is to live in its pale, borrowed light. When we read these myths now, we can choose to dismiss them as fantasies, or we can listen more carefully. For they tell us that humanity always suspected the moon was more than a passive companion. It was an event, a trauma, a transformation. Its presence turned chaos into pattern. Perhaps ancient people could feel in their bodies, in their tides of blood and hunger, that the moon was not just a lamp, but a force that restructured life itself. And perhaps this is why, even now, we gaze upward and sense unease. The moon is beautiful, but also haunting. Myths of a moonless Earth remind us that beauty can be temporary, that companions can be stolen, that light can be extinguished. The stories carry not only memory, but warning. They whisper that we live under borrowed light, and one day, perhaps, the sky will again belong only to the stars. The haunting persistence of these myths, scattered across continents, suggests they were not isolated fantasies, but recurring visions of absence. They tell us that different peoples, separated by oceans and centuries, imagined the same thing, a world where the moon was not yet there. This convergence itself is striking. Did humans invent this pattern because absence is easier to imagine than eternity? Or does the shared theme hint at some deep collective intuition, that the moon's story was not born with Earth but imposed upon it? Perhaps the myths themselves act as geology of the mind, layers of memory pressed into story, carrying the weight of something ancient. They are not literal records, but symbolic strata, preserving humanity's suspicion that the moon is not eternal. And when science finally proposed that the moon may have been torn from Earth, or captured, or born of collision, the myths no longer sounded naive. They sounded prophetic. To imagine Earth without a moon is to imagine a different humanity, a species without lunar calendars, without tidal guides, without the ghostly companion that haunts every love poem and prayer. Myths that speak of this absence are not simply about the sky, they are about us. They tell us who we might have been in the dark, and who we became under borrowed light. And in this way, they are not just echoes of the past, but warnings of the future, reminders that nothing in the heavens is permanent, not even the moon. If the myths are correct in spirit, then they do more than describe. They prophesy. They remind us that what we think eternal can vanish, that even the moon, which steadies our planet and fills our stories, is slowly drifting away. One day the myths of a moonless Earth may no longer be about a forgotten past, but about an approaching future. And when that day comes, humanity may once again tell stories, this time not of a world before the moon, but of a world after. If the moon did not emerge gently from Earth's body, but instead arrived as an intruder, seized or torn into being, then its appearance would not have been silent. It would have been catastrophic. The scars of that catastrophe might still ripple through Earth's crust, its oceans, its myths. To imagine the moon's arrival is to imagine upheaval on a planetary scale, a time when the skies burned, seas boiled, mountains shattered, and life, if it existed, trembled at the edge of extinction. The first catastrophe was cosmic fire. If the moon was born of collision, whether through capture or impact, then the energies unleashed would have been unimaginable. Scientists estimate that when a Mars-sized body, often called Theia, slammed into Earth in the giant impact hypothesis, temperatures soared until much of Earth's surface melted into an ocean of magma. Shockwaves ripped through the planet. Mountains that had just begun to form were vaporized in seconds. Entire slabs of crust were torn away and hurled into space, glowing like embers of a dying fire. Debris sprayed into orbit, glowing rivers of rock that circled Earth like fiery ghosts before coalescing into the moon. The sky would have blazed with arcs of molten stone, raining fragments back onto the surface for centuries. Oceans, if they existed, boiled away, replaced by seas of lava that stretched for thousands of kilometers. To early Earth, this was not simply a birth. It was a dismemberment followed by violent rebirth. The planet we know today was reforged in that fire, but the impact was not a single instant. It was an era. For centuries afterward, Earth endured what geologists call the years of hell. The surface was molten. The air was a choking haze of vaporized rock and steam. Sunlight was a dim red glow filtered through skies of ash. Thunderstorms of boiling rain scalded the surface, only to evaporate again in cycles of torment. Lightning lashed endlessly across skies heavy with smoke. If any fragile beginnings of life had stirred before, they were obliterated, forcing existence itself to wait until the world cooled. But even if we set aside the giant impact, the capture scenario itself promises chaos. To slow a wandering moon into orbit required friction, tidal energy, a tearing apart of momentum. Earth's oceans, if they already existed, would have heaved with tides hundreds of meters tall. Shorelines would have drowned. Continents might have fractured under the strain. Volcanic outpourings could have surged from the pressure, reshaping the land. If early microbial life had begun its fragile experiment, it would have faced eras of devastation. The geological record preserves hints of these upheavals. Ancient zircon crystals tell of oceans of magma and prolonged global heat. Layers of ancient rock speak of cycles of volcanism, of crust repeatedly broken and remade. While no stone remains that can directly testify to the moon's arrival, time and tectonics have erased those pages. The silence itself is suspicious. The oldest surviving rocks begin only after the chaos, as if Earth's memory was wiped clean by catastrophe before history could even begin. The atmosphere, too, would not have survived unscathed. After a colossal impact or a violent capture, Earth's skies would have filled with vaporized rock and dust, shrouding the planet in storms of molten rain. For centuries, the world may have been cloaked in a suffocating haze, alternately boiling and freezing in cycles of violent instability. Sunlight would have dimmed behind curtains of ash. Rain would have been acid. Oceans would have evaporated into the sky, only to fall again as endless storms. For ages, Earth was less a home than a furnace, a crucible in which the possibility of life waited out the storm. Myths mirror this sense of destruction. In nearly every tradition where the moon appears suddenly, its arrival comes at a cost. The Aztecs spoke of divine battles in which the moon emerged as the scarred sibling of the sun, its light dim because it was burned in cosmic war. Babylonian stories describe chaos before the moon's reign, battles of gods whose struggles tore the heavens apart. Aboriginal tales of the moon's placement in the sky are shadowed by fear. The light was a gift, but also a terror, a reminder of upheaval. Even in Norse mythology, echoes remain. The sky was said to be torn open in fiery battles, the sun and moon chased by wolves, threatened with destruction before order was restored. In Hindu texts, Rahu swallows the sun and moon, plunging the world into darkness until balance is restored. These are not just poetic fictions. They are symbolic memories of instability, of times when the heavens themselves seemed vulnerable. In every myth, the arrival or peril of the moon is tied to chaos. Science too reflects this duality. On one hand, the moon's arrival may have destroyed worlds. On the other, it saved ours. The very catastrophe that melted Earth may have allowed the formation of a stable moon that steadied our planet's tilt, controlled its seasons, and gave life the conditions to flourish. It is a paradox. Destruction that led to balance, chaos that led to order. Consider the tides of that ancient time. With the moon much closer to Earth, tidal forces were ferocious. Entire oceans surged hundreds of kilometers inland. Shorelines collapsed, rivers reversed. The very heartbeat of the planet was rewritten. These violent tides may have stirred Earth's chemistry in ways that promoted life, mixing oceans, concentrating nutrients, shaping coasts that became the cradles of biology. Life may have been born in catastrophe, cradled in the chaos unleashed by the moon's arrival. Volcanism, too, was likely intensified. Tidal heating, The grinding of Earth's crust under the pull of a newly arrived moon could have triggered vast lava floods, reshaping continents and forming the first true geological cycles. Perhaps the very crust we stand on today was forged under the stress of that arrival, broken and reforged until it could withstand the moon's relentless tug. The scars of this can be seen in the vast plateaus of ancient basalt, reminders of a time when fire poured across Earth in unimaginable volumes. And yet, the violence did not only scar Earth, it scarred the moon as well. Its surface, studded with basins and mascons, bears witness to trauma. Some of these great scars may be the remnants of the moon's own birth, craters not of random impacts, but of the process of capture and formation itself. Gravity maps reveal hidden wounds, invisible from the surface but etched deep within. The moon carries within it the memory of catastrophe, just as Earth does. These upheavals may even connect to myths of deluge and fire. Mesopotamian epics spoke of floods that erased humanity, storms unleashed by divine wrath. Greek tales remembered Phaethon, who set the sky ablaze and plunged the earth into fire before chaos restored balance. Chinese legends told of Gong Gong, the celestial rebel whose strike against the heavens tilted the world and unleashed floods. Polynesian stories spoke of skies torn and seas rising when celestial beings fought above the ocean. All of these myths, though separated by oceans and centuries, echo the same elemental truth. The sky once burned, the seas once rose, and stability was won only after catastrophe. Geologists, piecing together Earth's earliest history, see this paradox written in stone. They find evidence of oceans born from steam after unimaginable heat. They find signs of continents that rose, sank, and rose again in cycles of instability. They find isotopes that whisper of material exchange between Earth and a companion. These traces, faint but persistent, suggest that catastrophe was not only possible, but inevitable in the moon's making. Imagine standing on the shore of that ancient world, if life had eyes to see, a glowing, molten body rising in the sky, closer than we could ever imagine, so vast it filled the horizon. Each night, it would retreat slightly, its orbit expanding, its pull softening. But in those first days, its power was terrifying. Tides surged like walls of water. Earth groaned under stress. The heavens themselves were aflame with falling debris. To witness the moon's arrival was to witness the world remade. And perhaps, in myth, that memory endures. Flood legends from Mesopotamia, fire legends from the Americas, tales of divine battles from Greece, Babylon, and beyond, all may echo the same truth, that the moon's arrival was not serene, but catastrophic. That before the quiet beauty we know today, there was chaos. And that chaos, paradoxically, gave birth to stability. To speak of catastrophic events linked to lunar arrival is to accept that beauty often emerges from violence. The moon, serene in our sky, may be the scar of Earth's greatest trauma. It is a reminder that the order of the cosmos is forged in fire and flood, and as long as it circles us, we live under the legacy of that catastrophe. Every tide that rises, every eclipse that darkens the sun, is an echo of the day the moon was born, or stolen. A reminder that stability itself was carved from destruction. Perhaps that is the final paradox. The catastrophe that nearly destroyed Earth gave us the conditions for life. The violence that tore the moon into being ensured the stability of our seasons, the rhythm of our tides, the balance of our axis. The moon is both wound and healer, both trauma and salvation. It is apocalypse turned into balance, ruin transformed into refuge. And every night, when we gaze upward, we are staring at the scar of catastrophe, a scar that became our guardian. For this reason, every myth of cosmic fire, every legend of flood, every scientific model of molten seas and shattered crusts are not separate. They are echoes of one event. They remind us that Earth as we know it is not only shaped by creation, but by near destruction. We exist because the moon arrived, and the moon arrived in violence. That truth lingers in stone, in story, and in the restless tides that still answer to it. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson, that survival is often the child of devastation, that the most enduring harmonies are composed from discord. The moon is a monument to that truth, a celestial scar that became a source of balance. And so we live beneath it, heirs of its catastrophe, dependents of its stability, fragile creatures who owe our existence to the violence that remade the world. Among the strangest ideas ever whispered about the moon is that it is not what it seems, that it is not a passive companion, nor even a natural child of Earth or of the solar system, but an artifact, a thing engineered or transported or placed deliberately. To entertain this possibility is to leave the domain of geology and enter a realm where myth, conspiracy, and cosmic imagination collide. And yet the persistence of this theory is itself a phenomenon worth narrating. For across cultures, the moon is the one constant presence above us, and perhaps the most suspicious. The notion of an engineered moon is not new. Ancient texts sometimes hint that the moon was placed in the sky by divine hands. In Zulu traditions, two brothers rolled the moon into the sky, tricking it into orbit. In Mesopotamian myths, the moon god Sin seized his throne only after chaos was subdued, implying a placement, an installation. Greek legends of the Proselenes recalled an age before the moon, as though its sudden appearance marked not just a cosmic change, but a deliberate act. What if these were not metaphors, but memories, coded fragments of a time when humans, or their ancestors, saw something impossible unfold? Modern theorists of ancient astronauts have seized on these possibilities. Writers like Immanuel Velikovsky, Zecharia Sitchin, and more recent fringe thinkers have proposed that the moon could be hollow, that its density is anomalous, that its orbit is too precise to be the product of chance. They point to the moon's strange tidal locking, its face forever turned toward Earth, as evidence of design. They argue that its orbit, nearly circular compared to many irregular satellites, resembles placement more than capture. They remind us that its proportions are uncanny, the only moon in the solar system capable of perfectly covering its star during an eclipse, producing the miracle of a corona, a spectacle as though engineered for an audience. Some of these theories gained fuel from Apollo itself. When seismometers were placed on the lunar surface and struck by impacts, the moon rang like a bell, vibrating for far longer than expected. To engineers of the time, this was simply a property of its fractured crystalline interior. But to theorists, it sounded like something else, the hollow resonance of a structure, not a solid world. Could the moon, they asked, be a shell? A fortress? A vessel disguised as a satellite, hiding its true purpose behind an ancient mask of stone? The relocation theory goes even further. Some argue the moon was not built, but moved, that it wandered once through the solar system, until an intelligence captured it and placed it in orbit around Earth. This idea borrows both from myth and from speculation about alien engineering. If a species capable of interstellar travel wished to guide the evolution of life, what better method than to stabilize a planet's tilt with an artificial moon? What better way to shape civilization than to control its tides, its cycles, its myths? If you wished to plant intelligence on a world, you could plant its satellite first. The implications are staggering. If the moon is engineered, then every tide, every season, every poem written beneath its glow is part of a design. Humanity itself may be an outcome of alien intention. Our myths of gods placing the moon may not have been metaphors, but memories, distant echoes of real intervention. What we call coincidence may be architecture. What we call nature may be artifact. Skeptics dismiss this as fantasy. They point to the moon's geology, its isotopes matching Earth's mantle, its craters and basins as marks of natural history. And yet, the questions remain. Why does it sit at just the right distance to perfectly eclipse the sun, an alignment unique in the solar system? Why does its orbit stabilize Earth so precisely, preventing wild climatic swings that might have doomed life? Why is its size so large compared to its planet, unlike most moons? To the believer, these are not coincidences but signatures, fingerprints of design. Conspiracies multiply around these ideas. Some claim that ancient civilizations knew more than they should have, that structures like Stonehenge or the pyramids encode lunar alignments too precise for coincidence. Others whisper that Apollo astronauts encountered anomalies, that craters rang hollow, that shadows moved, that radio transmissions carried strange echoes. There are even tales of UFO sightings near the moon, of artificial lights, seen flickering on its surface by telescopes centuries before space travel. In the shadows of these stories, the moon becomes less a rock than a machine. The myths also align disturbingly well with these suspicions. In Hindu cosmology, the moon is Chandra, placed deliberately among the heavens to govern cycles of time and fertility. In Egyptian lore, the moon was linked to Thoth, the god of wisdom and knowledge, as if learning itself descended from the lantern above. In Mayan tradition, the moon goddess was associated with calendars, birth, and cycles, functions one might expect from an artificial regulator. In Chinese myths, the goddess Chang'e was said to live in the moon, a story that reads like a memory of habitation, of presence. Across the world, the moon is not simply natural, it is purposeful, installed, alive with intention. Beyond conspiracy, the relocation theory touches on a profound philosophical unease. If the moon was engineered, then humanity is not alone in shaping Earth's fate. It suggests we are participants in a plan we do not understand. It suggests life's rhythms, menstruation, agriculture, migration, are all guided by a hand unseen. And it suggests that what we think of as natural may be the longest-running experiment in the universe. The hollow moon hypothesis lingers in popular culture because it resonates with this unease. Science explains it away as fractured geology, but imagination whispers otherwise. Hollow worlds are symbols of secrecy, of hidden chambers, of truths waiting to be unveiled. To say the moon is hollow is to say that behind its face lies a mystery, a chamber, a machine, a place where watchers could dwell, observing Earth endlessly. It reframes the lunar phases not as celestial mechanics, but as the deliberate dimming and brightening of an engineered lantern. Relocation, too, evokes a kind of terror. To move a moon is to wield power beyond our comprehension. If some intelligence had the means to drag a celestial body across the void, then our entire planet is clay in their hands. And if they could move one moon, perhaps they could move others. Perhaps they shape worlds as easily as we shape clay lamps. The moon then becomes not a comfort, but a reminder of our fragility. It hangs not as a natural companion, but as a ceiling light installed in a cosmic room. Yet, strangely, the idea offers solace as well. If the moon was placed here, then perhaps it was placed with purpose. Perhaps it was not an accident, but a gift. Perhaps alien architects wished for Earth to endure, and so they hung the moon to guard it. Our stability, our poetry, our civilizations may all be the side effects of that intervention. If so, then we are not alone. We are the children of intention, born beneath a lantern hung deliberately above us. And so, the moon becomes both mirror and question. Is it a rock or a relic, a chance or a choice? To say it was engineered is to rewrite not just astronomy, but identity. For if the moon is artifact, then so are we. We would be less the children of chance and more the wards of design. Every myth of gods who place the moon, every ritual tied to its phases, every story whispered under its glow would transform from imagination into faint echoes of memory. Whether true or not, the persistence of this theory reveals something about humanity. We look at the moon and do not see chance. We see pattern. We see purpose. We cannot accept that such perfection might be random. And so we imagine architects. We imagine relocation. We imagine design. Perhaps in this, the myth itself becomes more important than the truth. For whether the moon was built or not, the idea reminds us that the universe may not be indifferent, that there may be mind in the machinery of the heavens, and that to gaze at the moon is to gaze at a possibility, that we are not only products of chaos, but of intention. And perhaps that is why the moon haunts us still. It is not only light in the night, it is the suspicion of order, the whisper of engineering, the lure of purpose. To believe the moon was placed is to believe we are meant. And that thought, whether terrifying or comforting, is enough to keep the theory alive. And so the moon endures in our imagination as artifact, as gift, as warning. It is the one companion we cannot escape, yet cannot fully explain. If it is engineered, then we live under a lantern hung by unseen hands. If it is relocated, then our world is part of a design whose architects we have never met. Either way, the moon is not just stone. It is story. It is suspicion. It is the haunting possibility that life itself has been curated, not by chance, but by choice. And perhaps, in the end, that is the true power of this theory. It transforms the moon from a cold companion into a riddle about destiny. It forces us to ask whether life is the outcome of randomness or the artifact of intention. And whether we accept or deny it, the question itself changes how we look at the night sky. For every time the moon rises, we are not just watching an orbiting rock. We are staring into the possibility of authorship, of design, of alien hands that once touched the fate of our world. Perhaps one day we will know. Perhaps one day exploration will uncover what lies within, whether it is dust and stone or something more. Until then, the moon remains a paradox. It is both familiar and unknowable, both near and unreachable, both comfort and enigma. And as long as it shines above us, it will remind us that we might not be alone, that the story of Earth may not be written only by Earth itself. And if, in the far future, humanity does discover that the moon was engineered, relocated, or repurposed, then everything changes. Religion would tremble, science would be forced to widen its definitions, and our sense of solitude in the universe would collapse. The moon would no longer be a passive witness, but a message, a monument, a marker left by hands older than history. It would mean we have always lived under a gaze, perhaps benevolent, perhaps indifferent, perhaps waiting. And that revelation would be the greatest turning point in human history. And so, tonight, as the moon rises once more, it does more than light the dark. It carries with it a silent question. Was it always meant to be there? Was it guided, designed, placed by minds greater than our own? Until the answer is known, we remain children beneath a mystery, telling stories to the sky, wondering if the face that watches us has always been watching and waiting for us to finally understand. Among the countless mysteries written into the fabric of the cosmos, few are as haunting as the relationship between the Earth, the moon, and the sun. Of all the billions of worlds scattered across the galaxy, ours possesses a spectacle so precise, so mathematically improbable, that it borders on the impossible, the perfect solar eclipse. The moon, though 400 times smaller than the sun, rests at just the right distance, 400 times closer, to blot out the solar disk with flawless accuracy. And in that balance, light and shadow conspire to stage one of the most extraordinary performances the universe has to offer. This is not a trivial alignment. It is a cosmic coincidence without parallel. Other moons in the solar system exist, larger and smaller, closer and farther, yet none performs this trick. The moons of Jupiter are vast, but too large and distant, never able to align with such elegance. The moons of Mars are tiny, lopsided stones that scurry across the sky unnoticed. Only here, only on Earth, does the geometry align so precisely that the moon becomes a mask for the sun, a veil drawn and lifted across the burning star. To witness a total solar eclipse is to feel the universe breathe. Shadows race across continents at the speed of storms. The sky darkens in midday, stars awaken, animals fall silent. And then, for a few minutes, the sun becomes something alien, a black void surrounded by pale fire. It is a reminder that geometry itself can conjure terror and awe. The coincidence of size and orbit is not only astronomical, it is existential. It forces the mind to ask, why here? Why now? Why us? Science explains this through ratios. The moon is 1/4 the diameter of Earth, the largest relative moon of any planet in the solar system. Its orbit averages 384,400 kilometers, close enough for its apparent size to nearly equal the sun's. But this balance is fragile. The moon drifts away from Earth by nearly 4 centimeters each year. In 100 million years, total eclipses will vanish. The moon will appear too small, and only annular eclipses will remain. This perfection is temporary. Humanity arrived in the brief window of time when the alignment is exact. What does it mean that human eyes opened in this brief age? Coincidence, say the skeptics. The universe is vast. Coincidences are inevitable. Yet, the mind struggles to dismiss the poetic symmetry. We live on a planet where the one body that steadies our tilt, regulates our tides, and governs our rhythms is also positioned to reveal the hidden crown of our star. The moon does not simply light the night, it unveils secrets of the day. Without eclipses, we might never have understood the sun's corona, never seen its radiant fire unveiled. Ancient peoples saw in this alignment not science, but omen. To the Maya, the eclipse was a cosmic jaguar devouring the sun. To the Chinese, it was a dragon swallowing light, a terror that had to be chased away with drums and noise. In Mesopotamia, kings trembled, fearing it foretold their deaths. The terror was justified, for the event was too perfect, too unlikely. It carried the scent of intention. When the sun disappeared, the people did not see coincidence. They saw message. They saw gods at war. They saw the veil between worlds torn aside. In Inca mythology, eclipses were battles between the sun god Inti and serpents of darkness. In Norse sagas, the sun was hunted by wolves, consumed in Ragnarok's shadow. Japanese legends told of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, hiding her face, plunging the world into chaos. African traditions described the sun and moon locked in quarrel, their fight dimming the sky. Across continents, the pattern was the same. The eclipse was too precise, too deliberate. It demanded meaning. Even in modern times, the eclipse refuses to be ordinary. Astronomers travel across continents to chase it. People weep when the shadow falls. Strangers embrace in the dark, as if the universe itself has conspired to show them something forbidden. The alignment speaks not just to the eye, but to the soul. It is geometry made myth, ratio made revelation. And still the question lingers, why is it so perfect? The skeptic answers, because if it were not, we would not be here to ask. Some argue that the moon's size and orbit are not merely coincidence, but a prerequisite for life. Without the moon to stabilize Earth's tilt, our seasons would lurch chaotically, plunging continents into ice and fire. Without its tidal pull, the oceans would stagnate, denying life the cycles that nurtured evolution. The moon is not only a companion but a guardian. And so, perhaps, the alignment was not accidental. It was necessary. But there are others who wonder if coincidence is too weak a word. They point to the uncanny ratios, the mathematical poetry, and whisper of design. What if the moon is not simply natural? What if it was placed, engineered, or relocated to perform its twin duties, stabilize the Earth and reveal the sun? To such minds, the eclipse is not chance but choreography, a cosmic message written in shadow and flame. If the moon is a lantern hung by intelligence, then the eclipse is its deliberate performance, staged for eyes that would one day look upward in wonder. Even if we accept coincidence, the strangeness remains. Why are we here now, in the fleeting moment of perfection? The dinosaurs never saw a true eclipse. The far future will not see one either. It is our age alone that witnesses the black sun crowned in fire. Did intelligence emerge because of this coincidence, or in order to witness it? Was evolution itself nudged by the tides, guided by the moon, sculpted by the very ratios that make eclipses possible? In this view, the coincidence is not random at all. It is woven into the very conditions that allowed us to exist. To imagine a world without eclipses is to imagine a world without mirrors of destiny. Without them, perhaps the sun would have remained unknowable, its secrets veiled forever. Without them, myths might have lacked their most terrifying omens. Without them, perhaps we would not have learned to measure the heavens, to predict cycles, to master astronomy. The eclipse may be coincidence, but it is also catalyst. It shaped culture as surely as it shaped science. Indeed, one of the most important proofs in physics was revealed through an eclipse. In 1919, when Einstein's theory of relativity was still new and contested, astronomers watched the stars near the eclipsed sun and saw their light bend, just as Einstein predicted. Without the moon's perfect mask, the sun's brilliance would have hidden this deflection. But in shadow, truth emerged. A coincidence of ratios became the gateway to a new universe. And yet, the poetry deepens. The moon is drifting. Each eclipse we witness is part of a dwindling treasury. Millions of years from now, there will be no more perfect eclipses. Humanity exists in a brief cosmic age, a golden window in which alignment is flawless. That window is closing. We are a species born not only into time, but into timing. We are creatures of coincidence. Perhaps that is why the eclipse stirs such primal emotion. It is not just spectacle, it is farewell. Each shadow across the earth is a reminder that we are living in the only epoch when such beauty is possible. It is as though the universe staged this performance for us alone, and we are watching its last acts. To see the sun eclipsed is to feel the weight of cosmic chance, and to ask if chance is enough to explain it. Whether by accident or intention, the moon's perfect size and orbit have carved themselves into our identity. Every tide, every myth, every calendar, every eclipse is a chapter in a story too precise to ignore. Coincidence or choreography, the moon's alignment is a reminder that the universe is capable of producing miracles of geometry. And so, when the shadow falls, when the sky darkens and the stars awaken in midday, we are left with a choice. We can say, this is coincidence, an accident of ratios. Or we can say, This is message, a sign of purpose. Either way, the effect is the same. We are humbled. We are reminded of our fragility. We are bound more tightly to the heavens than we ever dared imagine. The moon's perfect size and orbit are more than astronomy. They are destiny. They are the silent truth that even in a chaotic universe, patterns emerge that defy reason. Whether by chance or by design, they bind us to the cosmos, reminding us that to look up is to question everything. For in the sky above us hangs not only light, but meaning. And in every eclipse, the universe whispers, "You were meant to wonder." Perhaps in the distant future, when our descendants gaze upward and see only imperfect rings of fire, they will remember us as the people who lived in the age of symmetry. The age when the heavens aligned with impossible precision, when the sun and moon performed their dance in perfect proportion. And perhaps they will envy us, not for our technology, but for our view. For we lived in the only moment when the sky itself was flawless. That is the ultimate coincidence, and perhaps the ultimate gift, that we, fragile and temporary, should exist in the one chapter of cosmic history, where light and shadow embrace with perfection. That we should stand beneath the eclipse and feel not only awe, but recognition. That the universe is speaking to us in ratios, in silence, in symmetry. And whether that voice belongs to chance or to intention, it leaves us trembling, for the meaning is the same. We were here to see it. And so, when the last eclipse of history comes, when the moon has drifted too far and perfection is lost forever, perhaps humanity, wherever it has gone, will look back on this era and understand that it was never random at all. That for one fleeting age, the universe aligned so flawlessly that wonder itself was inevitable. And in that perfection, fragile life found both its question and its answer. For now, every eclipse is a reminder that we live inside a miracle of geometry, a fleeting balance that shaped science, inspired myths, and etched itself into our collective soul. We may never know if it was accident or intention, but as the shadow passes and the stars awaken in daytime skies, we are left with the same truth. The universe wanted us to look up, and in that gaze, we discovered ourselves. If the moon was once torn from the earth or taken by force, then its capture was not the end of a story, but the beginning of another, the shaping of life itself. For the moon does not simply orbit our planet, it sculpts it. It pulls at the oceans, stretches the crust, steadies the tilt of the axis, slows the rotation of the earth, and with each act it has carved out the conditions under which biology could bloom. To imagine Earth without the moon is to imagine a world alien, chaotic, perhaps unrecognizable. The tides are the moon's first and most visible signature. Each day, the oceans rise and fall in rhythm with its pull, a cosmic breathing that has echoed for billions of years. In the deep past, when the moon was closer and the earth spun faster, tides were immense, towering walls of water that surged across continents. They carved shorelines, flooded estuaries, mixed nutrients through the seas. Life's earliest forms may have relied on these tides, the ebb and flow of pools where chemistry could concentrate, where molecules assembled and reassembled until one of them came alive. Without the moon's tug, perhaps the ocean would have been too still for such experiments to succeed. As the moon drifted outward, the tides softened, but they never ceased. Even now, their rhythm governs the spawning of corals, the migrations of crabs, the nesting of sea turtles. Entire species live and die by the moon's clock. Fish rise toward the surface under its light. Birds time their journeys by its phases. Humans, too, have long felt its influence, from menstrual cycles echoing lunar months to sleep patterns disrupted by its brightness. We are, in ways subtle and profound, children of its pull. The moon also slowed the Earth itself. In the beginning, Earth spun so rapidly that a day may have lasted only 6 hours. But with each tidal tug, the moon siphoned energy from the Earth's spin and carried it into its orbit, inching farther away as the Earth's days lengthened. Without this breaking, our planet might still whirl too fast for stable climates, too fast for the slow rhythms of biology to take root. The moon not only shaped the seas, it shaped time itself. Then there is the tilt, the invisible balance that gives us seasons. Left to itself, Earth's axis might wobble wildly, swinging between extremes like Mars, whose tilt shifts chaotically over millennia. But the moon's gravity steadies Earth, keeping the tilt near 23.5 degrees. It is this delicate balance that ensures cycles of spring and autumn, summers and winters mild enough for life to adapt, harsh enough to test it. Civilization is built not just on land and water, but on the moon's invisible hand holding Earth steady. Mythology sensed this connection long before science. To the Babylonians, the moon was Sin, regulator of time. To the Greeks, Selene rode her chariot across the sky, her phases marking the cycles of fertility. In Polynesian tradition, the moon was linked to tides and harvests. Farmers planted by its phases, fishermen cast nets by its rise. The moon was not just a light, it was a calendar etched into the sky. Our ancestors lived by its rhythm, just as the coral reefs and crabs still do. Even in our bodies, the moon lingers. Some studies suggest that human sleep shortens during the full moon, that our circadian rhythms carry faint traces of its cycle. Women's reproductive cycles align closely to lunar months, a synchronicity so striking it shaped myths of moon goddesses across cultures. Whether by coincidence or by deep evolutionary imprint, the moon's rhythm echoes in our biology. What if the moon had never been captured? The Earth would spin faster, its axis unsteady, its tides weak. Perhaps life would still have emerged, but it might have been stunted, confined to stable niches. Perhaps complex life would never have risen from tidal flats. Perhaps evolution's great experiment would have faltered before it began. Without tides to mix nutrients, the oceans would be stagnant. Without stable seasons, climates would swing to chaos. Without lunar cycles, reproduction itself might be without rhythm. The moon's absence would mean a very different Earth, perhaps one without us. Ancient Indian tradition spoke of Chandra, the moon god, who carried both fertility and madness in his glow, a recognition that biology itself was tied to lunar phases. The Aztecs saw the moon as a guardian of cycles, overseeing agriculture and the human body. The Celts, too, measured time in lunar months, tying the growth of crops and the fertility of women to the same celestial rhythm. Myths were not just metaphors, they were intuitive recognition that the moon had imprinted itself on the pulse of life. And yet, the moon's influence goes even deeper. The great migrations of whales and sea turtles, the synchronized spawning of corals, the hatching of insects by moonlight, all testify to biology's enduring obedience to its presence. Remove the moon, and those rhythms fracture. Remove the moon, and ecosystems unravel. It is no exaggeration to say that much of the living world dances to its tune. The slow retreat of the moon continues to change biology even now. As it drifts farther, tides weaken. As days lengthen, circadian clocks adjust. The future of Earth's ecosystems is written not only in genetics, but in orbital mechanics. We are bound to the moon's fate as surely as we are bound to oxygen or water. Its capture long ago was not a single event. It is an ongoing negotiation, a contract still unfolding across time. Consider also how human civilization itself has been bound to the moon. The earliest calendars were lunar, carved into bone and stone. Farmers sowed by moonlight. Priests measured eclipses and harvests by its phases. Sailors read tides not from instruments, but from the sky. The moon has always been more than a companion. It has been humanity's first clock, first map, first oracle. Its capture did not just shape seas, it shaped culture. Egyptians linked the moon to Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, as if intellect itself were born beneath its glow. Native American traditions tied the moon to fertility and growth, marking moon months for planting and hunting. African myths described it as a regulator of life and death, its waxing and waning tied to cycles of renewal. Across the world, the same truth emerged. The moon was life's metronome. Its presence was not accidental, it was essential. In Maori traditions, the moon goddess Hina was linked to tides, fishing, and fertility, her cycle directing both ocean harvests and human life. Inuit myths told of a moon spirit who watched over time and seasons, reminding Arctic peoples of its guiding hand. The Yoruba of West Africa spoke of the moon as Ai, a guardian of earthly balance, connecting celestial cycles to fertility, agriculture, and destiny. Everywhere, the pattern was the same. The moon was not simply a rock in the sky, but a pulse, a ruler of order and chaos alike. And when we look deeper into evolution, we see the moon's fingerprints everywhere. In tidal flats billions of years ago, life clung to the edges of pools that filled and emptied, each cycle concentrating molecules, encouraging bonds, pushing chemistry toward biology. Later, As tides sculpted coastlines, creatures adapted to both land and sea. Amphibians testing limbs in the margins of water pulled by the moon. Plants too followed the rhythm, opening and closing, stretching toward the sky by cycles that echoed lunar light. To remove the moon from Earth's story is to remove the stage on which evolution performed its boldest acts. Without the tides, perhaps no life would have stepped onto land. Without the steady tilt, perhaps ice ages and infernos would have alternated endlessly, preventing stability. Without lunar cycles, perhaps reproduction itself would lack rhythm. The moon is not just witness to biology, it is author. And so, when we imagine the moment of its capture, we are imagining more than an astronomical event. We are imagining the sculpting of every shoreline, every migration, every season, every human story told under its light. The moon was not only seized by Earth, it seized Earth in return. It took hold of our oceans, our climates, our biology, and has never let go. To speak of tidal and biological changes after its capture is to speak of life as collaboration. Earth provided the stage, but the moon conducted the rhythm. Without it, we would be unmoored in chaos. With it, we live inside cycles that nourish memory, ritual, and survival. The moon continues to recede, and with it, our relationship evolves. One day, tides will fade, eclipses will end, seasons may shift into unfamiliar patterns. Life will adapt, as it always has, but it will carry in its blood the memory of the moon. Just as we carry in our myths the memory of gods who placed it there. And so, to wonder about the moon's capture is to wonder about ourselves. We are not merely inhabitants of Earth. We are the children of an embrace that began with violence and became balance. We are the offspring of a cosmic partnership. Our biology written in tides, our cultures written in months, our dreams written in phases of light and shadow. The story of biology is, in part, the story of the moon. And to remember that is to remember how fragile the balance is. We live not only on Earth, but within a cosmic relationship, one that began in fire and impact, in chaos and capture. And from that turmoil came rhythm, stability, fertility, and the slow blossoming of minds able to wonder. The moon was seized, perhaps, but in its capture, life itself was set free. When the Apollo missions returned with their cargo, humanity held its breath. For the first time, pieces of another world were brought into our hands. Rocks, soil, dust that had never known Earth's air. It was supposed to be the final step in a story long assumed. The moon was Earth's child, its geology an echo of our own. But when the samples were studied, something unsettling emerged. The moon's matter whispered not harmony, but contradiction. Its dust and stones carried riddles that refused to fit neatly into our models. Instead of closing the book on lunar history, Apollo had opened it. And the pages were strange. The first anomaly was age. Some lunar rocks were dated to 4.5 billion years old, older than most rocks on Earth's surface. This is not surprising at first glance, since Earth's crust is recycled by tectonics and erosion, while the moon's surface is frozen. But some samples were even older than Earth's oldest known rocks, suggesting that pieces of the moon had crystallized while Earth was still molten. Did this mean the moon had cooled faster, or that it came from a different source altogether? In the dust, time itself seemed disjointed. Then came the chemistry. Lunar rocks are depleted in volatile elements, things like water, potassium, and sodium. They are bone-dry, baked, and brittle. Yet they are rich in refractory elements like titanium and chromium in proportions that seemed strangely high compared to Earth. Some Apollo samples contained ilmenite, a titanium-rich mineral rare on Earth but abundant on the moon. Others contained free iron particles embedded in glassy beads, as though forged in conditions both volcanic and cosmic. It was not just stone, it was stone with the memory of fire. The isotopes told an even stranger story. Oxygen isotopes in moon rocks match Earth's mantle almost exactly, so precisely that it is uncanny. No other body in the solar system shares this signature. If the moon came from elsewhere, how could its isotopes mirror Earth so perfectly? But if it came from Earth, why did it lose its volatiles, gain strange metallic ratios, and preserve mysteries not found in our crust? The rocks told two stories at once, one of kinship, one of estrangement. The dust itself seemed almost alive in its strangeness. Lunar regolith is jagged, sharp, electrostatically charged. Unlike Earth's dust, worn smooth by wind and water, Moon dust is razor-edged, clinging to everything it touches. Astronauts found it lodged in suits, scratching visors, irritating lungs. Its particles are fused glass, the scars of countless micrometeorite impacts. Each grain is a shard of time, a record of 1 billion years of collisions. To walk on the moon was to step into a library of silence, where every speck was a page. Magnetism added another paradox. Some lunar rocks are strongly magnetized, as though they cooled within a magnetic field. Yet the moon has no global magnetic field today, and likely never had a molten core large enough to sustain one. Did it once host a dynamo that died too soon? Or were these rocks magnetized by some external influence, cosmic storms, or even artificial processes? The question lingers in every shard of basalt. Other samples contain glass spherules formed by sudden, extreme heat. Some suggest that they were forged by asteroid impacts, vitrifying the surface. Yet, the sheer abundance of these glass beads puzzled researchers. It was as though the moon had been burned over and over. Its surface melted in repeated cataclysms. In every handful of dust was evidence of fire. Then came the helium-3, an isotope rare on Earth, but abundant in lunar soil, carried by the solar wind and trapped in dust grains. This isotope is coveted as a potential fusion fuel, clean, powerful, and virtually inexhaustible. The moon, in this sense, is a treasure chest waiting to be opened. Yet its very abundance raises questions. How much of the moon's history has been written not by geology, but by cosmic bombardment? By streams of particles seeding its surface with alien elements? One of the strangest classes of rocks found were called creep basalts, named for their enrichment in potassium, K, rare earth elements, Re, and phosphorus, P. These exotic chemical signatures hinted at a late stage of lunar magma crystallization, a process both familiar and alien, as though the moon's mantle froze in a way unlike Earth's. They are found scattered across regions, almost like breadcrumbs of an ancient process that science has yet to fully decipher. There were also mascons, mass concentrations buried beneath the moon's Great Maria, discovered when spacecraft orbiting the moon dipped and lurched unexpectedly over certain regions. These dense anomalies distorted gravity itself, invisible mountains of mass buried under plains of basalt. What formed them? Ancient asteroid impacts filling craters with heavier material, or scars of something more enigmatic, processes we do not yet comprehend? The very gravity of the moon is uneven, warped by secrets beneath its surface. Some anomalies verge on the conspiratorial, reports circulated of unusual elements in Apollo samples, isotopes not expected from natural processes. NASA's official line explained them away as contamination, mismeasurement, or misinterpretation. But whispers persisted, that some samples contained traces hinting at artificiality, that others vanished quietly into classified vaults. True or not, the mere existence of such rumors reflects the aura of unease surrounding the moon's matter. For the astronauts themselves, the anomalies were not only chemical, but visceral. They spoke of the smell of moon dust, like spent gunpowder, acrid and metallic, though no combustion had occurred. They described its cling, its refusal to fall away, as if the dust itself remembered weightlessness. It was alien not only in composition but in behavior, a reminder that even the smallest grain carried a history alien to Earth. One Apollo astronaut described the dust as sticky, biting, alive, and when inhaled, it stung his sinuses for days. The moon's dust was not inert, it was invasive. Ancient cultures intuited this strangeness without laboratories. In Mesopotamia, the moon was thought to shed silver dust that blessed crops. In India, Chandra was tied to fertility and soma, the sacred drink. The Aztecs believed the moon carried the ash of divine sacrifice. To Polynesians, its dust was the residue of creation itself. Everywhere, myths described the moon's surface as a place not of stone, but of powder, ash, residue of something primordial. Perhaps they sensed what science would later confirm, that the dust was not ordinary soil, but a record of cosmic violence. The moon rocks also raised questions about depth. Some basalt suggested a once molten ocean of magma on the young moon. Others implied differentiation, layers that cooled at different times. But together, they painted a contradictory picture, a world both frozen and molten, ancient yet scarred by recent activity. Even today, hints of moonquakes suggest the story is not finished. The rocks are not silent. They mutter of a body still alive in ways we do not fully grasp. And then, the final enigma, some lunar samples appeared to be older than the sun itself. Zircons and Apollo rocks were dated at nearly 4.6 billion years, pushing the limits of the solar system's formation. How could fragments on the moon predate the very system that birthed it? Was this an error? Or did the moon carry remnants of worlds older than our own, preserved in its dust, like fossils of forgotten stars? To hold a moon rock is to hold contradiction. It is both familiar and alien, both kin and stranger. It confirms the giant impact theory with its isotopes, yet it undermines it with its chemistry. It whispers of fire and magnetism, yet denies the structures that could sustain them. It is dust that cuts, rocks that smell of gunpowder, glass that glitters with the memory of flames. It is helium-3 waiting to fuel futures, and zircons that mock the very clock of creation. And so, the anomalies in moon rocks and dust are not merely scientific puzzles. They are existential riddles. They remind us that even when we hold another world in our hands, it does not yield its truth. The moon keeps its secrets in shards and powders, in isotopes and grains of glass, in the silence between what we measure and what we feel. Its matter is a paradox made solid, a contradiction you can cradle, a reminder that sometimes the closer we get to the truth, the more it slips away in dust. Perhaps this is why the moon unsettles us still. Not because it is far, but because it is near. Because its rocks lie in our museums, its dust in our laboratories, and still we do not understand. Because every anomaly whispers of a story older, stranger, more deliberate than we dare imagine. The moon is not just a companion in the sky. It is a question you can hold and yet never answer. Perhaps one day when humanity digs deeper into the regolith and drills into the hidden mascons, the answers will come. Or perhaps the moon will remain what it has always been, a mirror of mystery, revealing only fragments, never the whole. For now, its rocks and dust remain the strangest library we have ever touched, a library that refuses to be read. And maybe that is the truth the moon offers, that even when we touch the dust of another world, sift it through our fingers, press it beneath microscopes, we are still outsiders looking in. That some questions are not meant to be solved, only carried. That every grain of dust is a reminder of silence older than Earth sees. The moon's matter is not an answer. It is a riddle that lingers, sharp as glass, soft as ash, eternal as shadow, and it will follow us, clinging like its dust, until the day we no longer look up. And perhaps, when humanity returns, not for footprints but for permanence, the moon's dust will reveal more. Perhaps hidden within those jagged grains are secrets of creation, or whispers of visitors who came before us, etched into isotopes like forgotten signatures. Perhaps the strangeness is not error, but message. If so, then every rock and every particle of dust is not only geology, it is testimony. And when we finally learn to read it, we may find that the moon has been speaking all along in a language older than Earth itself. On the moon, there are places where the sun has never risen, craters so deep, so steep, that their floors have remained in darkness for billions of years. While half the lunar surface blazes in fierce sunlight, these pits are locked in eternal night, untouched by warmth, their silence deeper than any desert. They are called permanently shadowed regions, cold traps at the poles where light cannot reach. To step inside them would be to step into a different kind of cosmos, where time itself seems frozen. In these shadows, temperatures plummet to minus 250 degrees Celsius, colder than the surface of Pluto, colder than the farthest reaches of the solar system's icy moons. They are vaults of cosmic cold, the closest thing to absolute zero that exists on a planetary body. Here, molecules that wander in may never leave. Water vapor, drifting for billions of years across space, has settled into these dark cradles, frozen into hidden glaciers. Hydrogen, methane, ammonia, and stranger volatiles may lie entombed here, preserved since the birth of the solar system. The forbidden quality of these regions is not only their darkness, but their strangeness. When probes and orbiters first mapped them, the images returned blank, voids where light could not penetrate. Instruments suggested the presence of ice, but not smooth sheets, more like shards, fractured crystals mixed with regolith, strange patchwork surfaces that reflect radar in odd ways. In some places, reflections suggested not only water, but metals, densities unusual for such cold traps, as though the shadows were not just empty basins, but something more. For astronauts, the thought of descending into such a place is as terrifying as it is alluring. Imagine standing at the edge of Shackleton Crater at the lunar South Pole. Its rim glitters with eternal dawn, sunlight grazing the edges, but inside, the blackness is absolute. Your visor reflects nothing. Your lamps cut only a cone through the dust. Beyond, there is nothing but the absence of everything. No stars, no horizon, no sense of up or down, a place where vision fails, and only touch and breath remain. The ancients imagined the moon as a mirror of duality, light and dark, waxing and waning. Yet they could not have known that its poles conceal regions where darkness is not a phase, but a permanence. These were the moon's true underworlds, its Hades, its realms of exile. To the Greeks, Hecate, goddess of night and hidden roads, was tied to the moon. To the Chinese, the dark side of the moon was home to spirits. To the Inuit, the moon held souls in its shadows. Perhaps they were speaking, in myth, of the very regions science would one day find. Science now tells us that these shadows may be more valuable than gold, for inside them lies water, and with water, the possibility of sustaining future colonies, air to breathe, fuel to burn, life in the void. Yet this treasure lies behind walls of lethal cold, hidden in darkness where machinery may freeze, where radio signals scatter strangely, where exploration is as much psychological as physical. The first humans to step into such regions will not only need technology, they will need courage to enter a place no light has ever touched. But beyond science lies mystery. Orbital surveys have shown anomalies in some permanently shadowed regions, reflections and absorptions that do not match expectations. Some have speculated about exotic ices, complex chemistry never seen before. Others whisper of stranger things, structures, patterns, alignments visible only in radar. NASA does not speak of forbidden zones, but the silence around certain anomalies fuels speculation. What if something lies beneath the dust, preserved in eternal night? Not just water, but memory? These shadows are also time capsules. On Earth, sunlight, wind, rain, and tectonics erase the past. But on the moon, especially in the frozen dark, nothing changes. A grain of dust that falls into a polar crater may sit unchanged for billions of years. If there was ever an epoch of greater bombardment, if comets once showered organics onto the moon, traces may still rest there. The shadows could hold the chemistry of origins, the prelude to life, fossils not of creatures, but of molecules that might have seeded Earth itself. And yet, perhaps there is another reason we call them forbidden. They are zones of disorientation. To step into them is to abandon the familiar. Humans are creatures of light, evolved under the rhythm of day and night. In the moon's polar craters, there is no rhythm, only night without dawn, silence without end. An astronaut wandering too deep might feel as though they had left not only the moon, but existence itself. Their heartbeat, echoing in their helmet, would be the only sound. Every step would feel like trespass. Forbidden zones also stretch beyond shadow. Some parts of the moon have been declared off-limits by agencies, not because of danger, but because of mystery. Regions with odd magnetic anomalies, where compasses spin strangely. Areas with mass concentrations that warp orbits. Places where old spacecraft signals flicker in strange ways. These zones are not marked on maps, but they are whispered about in mission control, in speculative papers, in the silence between data. Shadows may be permanent, but so too are silences. Ancient myth and modern science converge here. For what is a forbidden zone but a metaphor for the unknown, the unlit, the concealed? The moon holds these places like secrets, showing us half of itself in silver light, but keeping its deepest truths buried in blackness. Perhaps every world has such regions, the places that resist illumination, that remind us that knowledge is never complete. To step into them is to confront the limits of human knowing, to touch the edge of mystery itself. Perhaps, one day when humans descend into those eternal shadows, we will not only find frozen water or hidden minerals. Perhaps we will find reminders of something older, stranger, traces of visitors, messages preserved in the cold. Or perhaps we will find nothing at all, only the truth that some places are forbidden, not by decree, but by nature, not meant to be seen, not meant to be touched. And in that realization, we will face the deepest truth of exploration, that mystery, like shadow, is not meant to end. The moon was not only a destination, it was a stage. When Apollo astronauts walked upon its surface, the entire world watched in awe. Yet behind the broadcasts, the photographs, the triumphant words, there were silences, gaps, and shadows. For in the greatest journey humanity ever undertook, not everything was shown. Not everything was kept. And some of what was kept has never been returned to us. The Apollo missions brought back rocks and stories, but they also left behind questions, and with them, a troubling silence. It begins with the missing tapes. In 1969, the first moon landing was recorded not just by television cameras, but by special telemetry tapes, raw, high-quality footage captured at tracking stations in Australia and elsewhere. These tapes contain the clearest images of Armstrong's first steps, the undistorted data of the moon's surface as seen by human eyes. Yet, decades later, when archivists searched for them, they were gone. NASA admitted the tapes were likely erased, reused to save money, lost to bureaucracy. The best visual record of the most significant event in human history had been wiped away. Some say it was error. Some say it was neglect. Others whisper it was deliberate. Then there were the gaps in transmission. The Apollo missions broadcast live, their words relayed to millions. But in the recordings, there are silences, seconds, sometimes minutes, where communication dropped out. Officially, they were technical issues, switching between tracking stations, equipment adjustments, routine radio glitches. But the silences stirred whispers. What was said in those gaps? What did the astronauts see standing on the edge of another world that could not be spoken? Some claim the transmissions were edited, scrubbed before release. Others believe the astronauts were switched to secure channels, speaking of things that were never meant for public ears. There were missing photographs, too. Apollo carried Hasselblad cameras, capturing hundreds of images on each mission. Many survive, stored in archives, released to the public. Yet others vanished. Some negatives were damaged, others mislabeled, others never surfaced. In certain film rolls, frames are blank, overexposed, or struck with odd light flares. Were these merely accidents, or did they hide something? The astronauts themselves spoke sparingly of what they saw. Their words were measured, rehearsed, and careful. They had seen landscapes that had not changed in billions of years, and yet they seemed to carry more than just geology back with them. In the years after Apollo, rumors spread of tapes classified and locked away, of transcripts redacted before release. A story emerged of the Moon Room, where select officials viewed material never shown to the public. Some spoke of additional audio recordings, astronauts reporting visitors on the crater's edge, unknown signals interfering with their transmissions. Others spoke of photographs cropped or retouched before they ever reached the press. None of this has been proven. Yet the persistence of these rumors reflects the aura of secrecy that shadows Apollo. The secrecy extended even to what was brought home. Apollo returned with 382 kilograms of lunar rock and soil. Some samples were studied, some gifted to nations, some locked away. Yet even here, anomalies linger. Boxes of rocks reportedly went missing in transit. Others were said to have crumbled into dust, as if unstable when exposed to Earth's air. Some scientists complained that samples they had once examined were no longer available, or had been swapped with substitutes. NASA maintains strict control over the samples, but in that control, the suspicion of hidden truths has only grown. Even the astronauts themselves seemed haunted by what they could not say. Neil Armstrong, forever remembered for his cautious words, retreated from public life, reluctant to speak of his experience. Buzz Aldrin, more vocal, once alluded to strange lights and objects near Apollo 11's flight path, only to later soften his claims under scrutiny. Others spoke in half hints, memories sharpened by awe and dulled by obligation. They had touched the moon, but they carried its silence back with them, a silence they never fully broke. The missing recordings are not only physical, they are cultural. Humanity's greatest adventure ended not with a crescendo, but with an absence. After Apollo 17, the mission ceased. The tapes were lost. The archives grew dusty. We turned our eyes elsewhere, and in that neglect, the gaps widened. What had been hidden by accident became hidden by indifference. What had been erased by policy became erased by memory. The silence of the moon spread back to Earth, settling over the Apollo legacy like its own regolith. Speculation never ceased. Some claimed that the secrecy was mundane, bureaucracy, politics, the embarrassment of lost data. Others suggested something larger, that the astronauts had stumbled upon evidence of other presences, other histories on the lunar surface. Some whispered of ruins, of artificial structures glimpsed on crater walls. Others imagined signals, messages encoded in the radio static, intercepted and locked away. These theories thrive not because they are proven, but because the gaps remain. Mystery lives in absence. What is most striking is the pattern. At every stage of Apollo, there is triumph, and there is silence. We see the astronauts bounding across the plains, but not the minutes missing from transmission. We see the photographs of flag and footprint, but not the rolls that vanished. We hear of the rocks in our museums, but not the boxes unaccounted for. We celebrate the courage of those who flew, but we do not know the weight of the secrets they carried. Apollo is both revelation and redaction, both light and shadow. Consider the investigation decades later. In 2006, NASA finally admitted that the Apollo 11 tapes, the original telemetry, the clearest record of the first steps, had been erased in the early 1980s, wiped clean and reused to save money on data storage. By then, the moon landing had become history, and history had been sacrificed to bureaucracy. The clearest images we could have had, the raw memory of the moment, were gone forever. All that remains are the fuzzy broadcasts, copies of copies, like echoes fading through generations. And then there are the whispers of the lost 2 minutes, a supposed blackout during Apollo 11's moonwalk, when Armstrong and Aldrin allegedly described objects on the crater's edge, lights in motion, presences unrecorded. Official transcripts show nothing unusual. NASA denies the story. Yet the rumor persists, fueled by testimony of anonymous technicians and by the enduring human hunger for hidden truths. Whether myth or memory, the idea of the lost minutes has become part of Apollo's shadow legacy. Even the astronauts' later words add fuel to the mystery. Armstrong, speaking in 1994, gave a cryptic address about truth's protective layers, hinting at hidden discoveries left unsaid. Aldrin, in later years, spoke openly about a monolith on Mars's moon Phobos, suggesting that the universe held signs of others waiting to be found. Their words, filtered through speculation, became part of the mythology of Apollo's secrecy, a sense that those who went farther than any human before them had glimpsed mysteries we were not ready to hear. The secrecy threads through Apollo 13 as well. The mission, remembered for survival and ingenuity, also carried gaps in telemetry, unexplained signal losses during its crisis. In the haze of malfunction, not every recording survived, not every exchange was archived. For those who suspect hidden truths, Apollo 13 is another symbol, that when chaos strikes, it is not only machines that fail, but memory itself. The moon holds its silence tightly, and sometimes Earth conspires to keep it. Perhaps this duality is inevitable. The moon itself is half lit, half dark, never showing us its full face. How fitting, then, that our journey there is remembered the same way, half truth, half silence. Perhaps secrecy is as much a part of the moon as its craters. Perhaps missing tapes, missing words, missing images are not accidents, but echoes of the moon's nature, its refusal to give itself fully. The moon hides even in plain sight, and when we tried to capture it, it taught us its lesson. Some things resist being kept. And so, Apollo's missing recordings remain not only an archival failure, but an existential riddle. Did we lose them, or were they meant to be lost? Did the astronauts speak truths that could not be shared, or did the silence itself become the truth? In every erased tape, every missing frame, every redacted word, the moon whispers its paradox, that the more we reach for certainty, the more we clutch emptiness. One day when humanity returns to the lunar surface, perhaps new recordings will be made, digital, secure, impossible to erase. Perhaps then the gaps will close, or perhaps new gaps will appear, new silences, new forbidden truths. For secrecy is not only the domain of governments, it is the nature of mystery itself. The moon will always keep something back. It is the keeper of shadows, the librarian of silence. Apollo lifted the veil, but the veil was never meant to be removed entirely. And so, we are left with the paradox of Apollo, that humanity's greatest achievement is also its greatest silence, that the journey to the moon was not only a step into space, but a step into secrecy, and that the missing recordings, whether erased by accident or hidden by design, are themselves part of the moon's story. A story unfinished, a story untold, a story written not in light, but in absence. The moon, after all, does not shine by its own power. It reflects. Perhaps Apollo 2 reflects. Not only what we achieved, but what we concealed. Not only what we discovered, but what we lost. And perhaps that is the final lesson of the missing tapes, that in every triumph lies a silence, in every revelation's a shadow. The moon remains what it always was, a mirror. And in its mirror, we see not only our courage, but our secrecy. Not only our steps, but our silence. Perhaps when we return, we will search not only for new discoveries, but for old echoes, for the erased voices, the missing frames, the silenced truths buried in vaults and memories. And if we do not find them, then perhaps that absence itself is the answer, that some truths belong not to history, but to myth, not to tape, but to silence. And the moon, with its pale face and hidden side, will always remind us of this, that even in our greatest triumphs, what we cannot keep will always speak louder than what we can. For as long as humanity has looked upward, the moon has been more than light. It has been a watcher, its pale face following the earth through every night, its steady gaze cast over oceans and forests, over cities and empires. Myths called it an eye, a guardian, sometimes a spy of the gods. And in the modern age, as technology awakened new fears, the question was asked in whispers. What if that image was more than metaphor? What if the moon is not only our companion, but a station, placed, prepared, or adapted as an eye in the sky? From a scientific view, the moon is a perfect vantage point. It circles Earth at just the right distance to see the entire hemisphere at once, to track continents, oceans, armies, signals. Unlike satellites that decay and fall, the moon endures. A device left there could watch for millions of years, stable, unblinking. Its far side, hidden from Earth, offers absolute secrecy, a base where instruments could be hidden from detection, listening to our broadcasts, mapping our every movement. It is both a window and a shield, a natural fortress. During the Cold War, such ideas were not only science fiction, they were strategy. In the late 1950s, the U.S. Army studied Project Horizon, a plan to establish a military base on the moon by 1966. The document spoke of surveillance, of control, of using the lunar vantage to monitor the Earth and deny it to rivals. The Soviets dreamed similar dreams. Missiles launched from the moon, telescopes peering across the globe, radio dishes listening not just to space, but to us. The moon as fortress, the moon as observatory, the moon as the ultimate high ground. But what if someone else had the same idea long before us? Some astronomers have speculated that if an advanced intelligence wanted to monitor Earth, the moon is where they would place their outpost. Close enough to observe, far enough to remain untouched, geologically stable, atmospherically silent. A surveillance station placed billions of years ago could still function today, hidden under dust, its signals blended into cosmic noise. And the thought lingers. Are we being watched, not from the stars, but from the companion that has circled us since before memory? There are anomalies that feed this imagination. Photographs from Apollo missions showing strange towers of light, spires that seem too regular, shadows that do not match the terrain, craters with luminous glows, radar echoes that behave oddly, signals that bounce from places they should not. Some dismissed as artifacts of film, of equipment, of overexposure. Others remain unexplained. For those inclined to suspicion, they are not accidents. They are evidence. Evidence of structures, of machines, of eyes that were never meant for us to find. Astronauts themselves felt the presence. Some reported the sensation of being observed, of not being alone. Buzz Aldrin once spoke of an object trailing Apollo 11, later explained as part of their own rocket. Yet his tone carried unease. Others described lights on the horizon, flashes in craters, glimmers they could not name. The moon, they said, did not feel empty. It felt inhabited, not by people, but by attention. As though the silence itself was a form of awareness, the regolith listening as closely as the stars. Ancient cultures would not be surprised. The Babylonians called the moon Sin, the all-seeing light. Egyptians linked it to Thoth, the keeper of knowledge, recorder of every deed. In Hindu myth, Chandra rides the night sky, watching lovers and warriors alike. The Dogon of Africa told stories of spirits in the moon who observed mankind's rituals. Native American tribes described the moon as the night eye, tracking the steps of hunters. In Japanese folklore, the moon is a hidden city of watchers. In countless traditions, it is not passive, it sees. Technology makes the idea practical. Instruments buried beneath the surface could run for eons, powered by solar collectors on crater rims. Tiny probes disguised as boulders could record seismic movements, atmospheric leaks, even the growth of cities seen from orbit. The far side could host massive antennae, shielded from Earth's radio chatter, capable of intercepting every broadcast we have ever made. Our own signals, bouncing carelessly into space, could have been harvested, archived, and studied long before we even realized they were escaping. The implications are chilling. A surveillance station on the moon, whether ours, theirs, or someone else's, would mean that Earth has never truly been private. Every war, every experiment, every signal might have been recorded. Our rise from fire to steel to silicon might be cataloged already, in archives buried under lunar dust. If such a station exists, it may not even need operators. Machines could watch forever, powered by the sun, sending their findings elsewhere. Watching is easy. Understanding is harder. And if such surveillance exists, then what of intent? Is it protection, a shepherd's gaze to ensure we do not destroy ourselves? Is it curiosity, the way we place cameras in jungles to watch animals unaware of our presence? Or is it indifference, machines set in place so long ago that even their makers have forgotten us? Their programs still running through the civilization that wrote them has turned to dust. The moon, in its stillness, could be the library of our lives, observed and recorded by eyes we do not know. Perhaps that is why the idea unsettles. Because it would mean our history is not only ours, that even in our most private hours, our wars, our loves, our prayers, we were not alone. That above us, always above us, an unblinking watcher has kept record. And when we finally reach into its dust, we may find not only our reflection, but our file. Or perhaps the truth is simpler, yet no less haunting. Perhaps the moon has already been used by us as a surveillance station. Instruments left behind by Apollo and later missions, seismometers, retroreflectors, radio receivers, all part of experiments, all part of science. But science and surveillance are twins, differing only in intent. What begins as measurement may end as monitoring. What begins as curiosity may end as control. The moon, with its silence, makes no distinction. The Cold War dreams of lunar military outposts never came true, but they left their mark. Project Horizon was abandoned, but its documents read like prophecy. The Soviets never built their lunar fortress, but their cosmonauts spoke of the moon with a reverence tinged with secrecy. Both sides knew that if the moon was claimed as a station, the balance of power on Earth would change forever. Perhaps it already had. Speculative minds go further still. Some propose that alien technology could be embedded deep within the regolith, black boxes from distant civilizations, designed to monitor not only Earth, but the evolution of life itself. Probes hidden in shadowed craters, machines disguised as rocks, patient as stone, waiting only to be discovered. If so, then every step we take on the moon is not exploration, but trespass, walking across the surface of someone else's laboratory. Ancient myth speaks again here. The eye of Horus in Egyptian lore watched over the world, guarding, recording, judging. In some African traditions, the moon was the council of ancestors, silently keeping record of every action. Even Shakespeare called it the eye of night. Across centuries, cultures converged on the same intuition, that the moon is not passive light, but active sight. And so, the moon's face becomes stranger. It is both reflector and recorder, both silence and surveillance, both companion and overseer. When we look upon it, we do not only see its craters, we see its possibility as an archive. And if that archive exists, then we must ask, who reads it? The moon, then, is both mirror and monitor. It reflects our fears, our ambitions, our myths, but it also may record them, silently, endlessly. When we speak of surveillance, we speak of control. And what is more controlled than a world whose every motion is observed? So, when you look at the moon, ask yourself, is it a companion or a camera? A mirror or an eye? A rock or a recorder? Perhaps it is all of these. Perhaps it has always been watching. Perhaps we have never truly been alone under its light, and perhaps when we return, not as explorers but as inheritors, we will find not a barren world, but an archive of everything we have ever been. And in that moment, the moon's silence may break, not with words, but with a playback. And we may realize that all along, the face in the sky was not a friend nor an enemy, but a witness, a sentinel older than history, patient as shadow and tireless as time, a surveillance station not of our making, but of our destiny, watching, remembering, reflecting, forever. And maybe that is the final truth, that we have never lived unobserved, that our world has always been beneath the gaze of the moon, a cosmic eye that does not blink. Every flame lit, every war fought, every kiss, every cry, every invention, perhaps all of it has already been noted, filed, stored in silence. And one day when the moon speaks back, humanity may learn that it was never the master of its own privacy, but only the subject of an eternal recording. Perhaps in the end, that is why the moon was given to us, not as a lamp in the night, but as a mirror of our fate, to remind us that nothing is ever truly hidden and no action ever vanishes. The moon, silent above, has always been our witness, our archive, our eye in the dark. And whether by our hand or by another's, it may always remain what it has always been, the oldest surveillance station of all. And perhaps, when our species finally becomes bold enough to confront this truth, we will understand that the moon has not only been our mirror, but our judge, not condemning, not praising, only remembering. And in its pale silence, we will see that everything humanity has ever done has already been written, on the blank pages of the sky, in the unblinking eye that never closes. The moon does not forget, it never has. Imagine looking up at the night sky and finding it empty. No silver guardian, no pale lantern rising over horizons, no tide swelling under its pull, just stars scattered in the dark, vast and indifferent. Without the moon, Earth would still exist, but it would not be the Earth we know. The rhythms of our planet, the stories of our species, the very possibility of our existence would be reshaped, perhaps diminished, perhaps erased altogether. The first and most immediate absence would be in the seas. The tides we take for granted, waves that rise and fall, that carve coasts, that nourish estuaries, that guided sailors for millennia, are the moon's daily gift. Without it, tides would shrink to whispers, driven only by the distant sun, shallow, weaker, less certain. Coastal life, born in the gentle tug between land and water, might never have evolved as it did. The mingling of ocean and shore, that fertile cradle of complexity, might have remained barren. Countless species, from crabs to clams to the earliest fish that braved the land, owe their existence to lunar tides. Without them, the evolutionary ladder may have lacked its first rungs. But the moon's influence goes beyond tides. It holds Earth steady, locking our planet's tilt at 23.5 degrees. Without it, Earth would wobble wildly, pulled and twisted by the gravity of Jupiter, the sun, and passing stars. One century might see ice covering the equator. Another might see deserts where the poles once lay. Seasons would collapse into chaos, climate into violence. Civilization, dependent on stable harvests and predictable skies, might never have taken root. Without the moon, agriculture could have been impossible. Humanity might have been trapped forever in small nomadic bands, fleeing the shifting moods of a planet without balance. Even the length of our days would have been different. The moon slows Earth's spin, gradually stretching our days across billions of years. Without it, our planet would whirl faster. Perhaps our days would last only 10 hours, nights shorter, more frantic. Winds fiercer, storms more violent. Time itself would have felt unsteady, rushing past before we could breathe. Human biology, tuned to rhythms of light and darkness, might never have found its balance. Sleep, dreams, thought itself, different, fragmented, hurried. Evolution might have produced creatures capable of surviving such instability, but would they ever have become human? And yet, the loss would not only be physical, it would be cultural. The moon has been our first calendar, our first clock. Ancient farmers planted by its phases. Priests marked rituals by its waxing and waning. Poets traced its path through love and longing. Without it, human imagination would be poorer. Myths would lack their silver thread. Nights would be darker, more fearful. less inspiring. The earliest storytellers, staring into the black, would have fewer metaphors, fewer dreams. Civilizations might have measured time only by the sun, but days would blur and months would vanish. There would be no shared rhythm of waxing and waning light, no universal reminder of cycles and return. Consider the hunters who followed moonlight across the plains. Without it, nights would have been darker, prey harder to track, predators harder to see. Fire might have been discovered later, perhaps too late. The moon gave courage, a companion in the dark. Without it, fear might have ruled longer, delaying humanity's mastery of night. The absence of its glow would mean more than a loss of beauty. It would mean a deeper submission to darkness. Humanity's courage might have come slower, its boldness diminished. Even the beauty of our world would dim. Lovers would not walk beneath the same glow. Oceans would not shimmer with silver. Deserts would not blaze with pale light. Painters would lack their muse, musicians their rhythms, dreamers their visions. Imagine a sky stripped of that gentle eye, and you imagine a culture half asleep, deprived of one of its greatest mirrors. And then comes the deepest change of all, life itself. Scientists believe the moon was forged in violence, a fragment of Earth torn away in a colossal collision. That collision gave us more than a satellite. It gave us balance, stability, protection. Without it, perhaps Earth would have spun out of control, barren, unstable, lifeless. In that sense, without the moon, we may not exist at all. Humanity is not only shaped by the moon, we are its children. Its silent guidance is carved into our bones, our stories, our very breath. But imagine, for a moment, that life did emerge without it. Imagine a species staring into a night sky with no companion, only stars. Would they wonder if they were alone? Would their myths be emptier, their philosophies colder? Would they feel abandoned by the heavens, or never know what was missing? Perhaps their gaze would stretch farther, toward planets, toward galaxies, searching for the intimacy they never had. Without the moon, humanity might have been lonelier, more desperate, reaching into the dark with no reflection to anchor them. The moon has also been a shield. Its gravity pulls comets and asteroids away, sparing Earth from countless collisions. Without it, our planet would be scarred by more impacts. Civilizations ended before they began. Dinosaurs might have fallen sooner, or never risen at all. Humanity's fragile line might have been cut long before it began. The moon is not only a light in the sky, it is our guardian. Without it, we would have lived under constant siege. And what of our future? Without the moon, the dream of space would be different. Apollo could not have promised a journey to another world so near, so reachable. Our first steps beyond Earth might have come centuries later, or not at all. The moon is not only our satellite, it is our ladder. Without it, our reach into the cosmos would have been slower, our dreams more hesitant. Humanity might still be grounded, never knowing the taste of other soil. Without the moon, human time itself would be fractured. Our calendars would never have settled into months. Festivals and rituals tied to lunar cycles would vanish. Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, and Christianity, religions that mark sacred days by lunar phases, might have evolved differently, or not at all. Whole systems of belief would be altered, human spirituality itself reshaped. The moon's absence would ripple not just through science, but through faith, rewriting the very meaning of the heavens. Animals, too, would have been changed. Many creatures synchronize reproduction with the moon. Corals spawn under full moons, turtles crawl ashore guided by lunar light, birds migrate by its glow. Without it, ecosystems would have been broken, patterns scattered. Perhaps biodiversity itself would be less rich, less complex. The chain of life would be weaker, less interwoven. Humanity, born out of that web, might never have risen at all. Picture an alternate Earth where nights are darker, seasons unstable, storms raging under a sky with no steady glow. Humanity might be more nomadic, forever fleeing droughts and ice. Civilizations might rise and fall more quickly, unable to depend on predictable cycles. Technology, art, philosophy, all delayed or warped into something unrecognizable. A world without the moon might host humans, but they would not be us. And there is the haunting thought. Perhaps intelligence itself required the moon. Perhaps without stable seasons and protective tides, life would never have grown complex enough to dream. In this way, The moon is not just our satellite, it is our midwife, our co-creator. Its absence would be our absence. Yet even in imagining that emptiness, we feel the moon's presence more sharply. We understand that the soft glow we see each night is not mere decoration, but destiny. It steadies us, protects us, inspires us. Without it, we would not write poetry. We would not cross oceans. We would not plant with confidence. We would not tell stories under silver light. Without it, we might never have lifted our eyes to the stars at all. So, humanity without the moon is a phantom, an echo of what might have been. A species stunted, lonely, unstable, perhaps extinct. And that is why every glance at the moon should be a reminder. It is not just light in the dark. It is our compass, our shield, our muse, our balance. It is the quiet architect of our existence. If it were gone, we would be gone too. And if we remain, it is because it has remained. The moon does not simply orbit us, we orbit it, in ways more profound than gravity. Our past, our present, and our future are bound to it. Without it, there is no us. Perhaps one day when humanity walks under skies without the moon, whether in exile on other planets or in a distant age when chance rips it away, we will finally understand the depth of what it gave us. Not just tides or calendars, but the rhythm of being itself. The moon is more than rock and dust. It is the echo of creation, the guardian of balance, the silent sculptor of destiny. And without it, we would have been nothing but silence too. And that is the final truth. If the moon had never risen above us, humanity would never have risen at all. It is our reflection, our protector, our guide. And without it, the sky would not only be darker, it would be empty of us. If the moon was once part of Earth, torn away not by accident but by design, then every night we look skyward, we are staring at the aftermath of a theft so old it predates humanity, so total that it shaped our seas, our skies, our myths, our very possibility of existence. And if that is true, then there is only one question that matters. Who took it? And why? Science tells us of the giant impact hypothesis, of a young Earth struck by a Mars-sized body called Theia, of debris hurled into orbit coalescing into the moon. Yet even this story trembles under its own strangeness, for the moon is too perfect, too unlikely. It is just the right size to stabilize Earth's tilt, just the right distance to create tides that nurture life, just the right alignment to eclipse the sun with mathematical precision. Too much coincidence, too much design. Some look at this and see chance. Others look at this and whisper, intention. If the moon was taken, perhaps it was taken by them. An advanced intelligence older than us, watching Earth in its infancy, choosing to sculpt it. Perhaps they saw a planet trembling with potential, but unsteady, and they intervened. A cosmic gardener pruning and planting, a hand reaching down to stabilize a spinning top. They did not steal the moon to rob us, but to raise us, to make of Earth not chaos, but cradle. The moon is gift, but a gift extracted by force, ripped from Earth and set above us as both tool and symbol, yet motives need not be so benevolent. Perhaps it was not given, it was imposed, a collar around Earth's neck, a tether, a leash. With it, tides can be controlled, climate stabilized, life directed. The moon becomes less a guardian and more a warden. Earth, the prison. Humanity, the experiment. If so, then the one who took it is not a savior but a jailer, and we are not children of the moon but captives of it. The myths remember fragments of this question. The ancient Greeks spoke of Selene, the moon goddess, whose presence was both watchful and binding. The Mayans told of gods who tore pieces of earth to light the heavens. The Maori legends recall a time before the moon existed, when nights were darker and shorter. In some stories, the moon was stolen, carried away by spirits or trickster gods. Again and again across cultures, the moon is not born. It is taken. Perhaps myth is memory, a coded echo of something too old for history to hold. But who could have done it? Some imagine alien architects, sculptors of worlds. Others imagine a more mysterious force, the universe itself. What if consciousness is not ours alone? What if galaxies themselves, vast and sentient, shape planets like clay? The moon might not have been stolen by someone, but by something. The will of the cosmos, bending matter into arrangement, crafting balance where none existed. In that view, the moon is less theft than sacrifice. Earth torn open, forced to give up part of itself so that life could endure. And still others whisper of a darker purpose: surveillance, experiment. The moon not merely companion but machine. A hollow body, as some conspiracies claim, with structures inside, chambers that hum with forgotten machinery. It was not taken to aid us nor to bind us, but to watch us, to monitor, to measure, to record. Earth itself is the experiment. The moon is the lab window. Who would take such a prize? A civilization curious, cautious, perhaps fearful. If we are dangerous, then the moon is both shield and spy, keeping us visible and contained. Then there is punishment. What if the moon is not gift nor prison, but scar? Imagine an ancient war, not of humans but of titans, celestial civilizations warring across star systems. Perhaps Earth was shattered, its flesh torn open as punishment, the moon ripped away and hung in orbit as a reminder. The wound never healed. Every night we see it, a trophy of defeat, a monument of violence. If so, then the one who took it was not nurturing nor curious, but cruel, and the reason was simple: conquest. Yet perhaps the strangest answer is that we took it ourselves, not humanity as we know it, but an older humanity, lost, erased, a civilization forgotten. If we had once risen before, higher than now, with powers we no longer recall, perhaps it was we who tore the moon free, shaping it as tool or temple or weapon. And when that civilization fell, the moon remained, mute evidence of what we were capable of. In that reading, the ultimate question turns inward. Who took it? Us. Why? Because we needed it. Because we thought we could control destiny. And in doing so, we bound ourselves to a future that would forget the crime, but in every possibility, gift, prison, scar, machine. The moon's presence is not neutral. It shapes us, defines us, watches us. Whoever took it had purpose. They did not act by whim. So what purpose was worth reshaping a world? To create life, to control it, to judge it, to study it, or to warn it. Perhaps the moon is not for us at all. Perhaps it is a signal to others, a beacon. When another intelligence passes by, they will see the balance of Earth and moon, the improbable symmetry, and they will know. This planet was touched, this world was marked, this place was chosen. And so, we circle back to the question again and again. Who took it? And why? We cannot answer, not fully. The evidence lies beyond reach, hidden in dust and stone, in myths and memories, in silences too deep to break. But the question itself changes us. To wonder is to acknowledge that the moon may not be an accident, that our existence may not be entirely our own. And that thought is both terrifying and humbling. Look at the moon now. Its pale glow on your window, its pull on your tides, its steady orbit year after year. If it was taken, then every moment of your life is part of the reason. Your breath, your blood, your history, all shaped by an act of cosmic theft. Whoever took it wrote themselves into you. Whoever took it gave you seas, dreams, fears, calendars, myths. Whoever took it shaped the earth into cradle and stage. And perhaps that is the answer. It does not matter who. It does not matter why. Because in the end, the act worked. Life exists. Humanity rose. We ask the question only because the theft succeeded. The moon was taken, and in its taking, we were given. And so, perhaps the greatest mystery is not who took it, nor why, but whether they are still watching, waiting to see what we do with the gift, the prison, the scar, the machine they left behind. Every night, when we look at the moon, we are not just looking at rock and dust. We are looking at intention. And that is the most haunting truth of all.